But let's go ahead and kick it off. For those of you that I have not had the pleasure to meet or know in person, my name is Ben Smithee, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Smithee Group. We are a digital growth agency based here in New York City. Our offices are typically in Dumbo, Brooklyn, but now our entire 13-person team is working remotely, as are most all of you, I believe. So we're in the fight together. We are excited to be here. And for those of you, again, that I'm meeting for the first time, I am really excited to do so. And hopefully we'll get a chance to see each other in person sometime this year through an event or a gathering or into 2021. We have a couple people that have raised their hands that I see. I just want to make sure that Beth Owens and Laura Sipe, if you have a question or if you need something, type it into the chat if you're having any issues, and we can try to help you out as you're in. But I also want to now take a minute and let my great webinar partner, Tiffany Stevens, introduce herself and tell you a little bit more about her.
Hi, thank you so much, Ben. And thank you everybody for joining today. Ben and I have put some thought into what might be really helpful in this moment. So we're excited to share with you and also get your questions so we can really refine and drill down on what you're dealing with and how we can all get through this time. My name is Tiffany Stevens. I am the CEO and General Counsel at the Jewelers Vigilance Committee. We are a 104-year-old trade association that services just the jewelry industry, and we focus on all the different legal issues that the industry faces. Normally, we're focused on compliance and guidance around intellectual property, advertising, anti-money laundering, and some of the other things that we all face day to day. We also go to DC and advocate for the industry's interests there as well. But now we are doing all the stuff we usually do and finding all the issues that we can help you with to make sure that we all do well during this time and get through it together. So that's me.
Excellent. And so I just also wanted to let people know in Q&A, obviously, since we have a bunch of different things, obviously from a marketing side, I can pretty much talk about whatever I want to talk about as long as it's within reason and as long as it goes with the FTC guidelines and things of that nature. Obviously, from a legal perspective, Tiffany has a few more parameters that she needs to stay within and things of that nature. So I just hope people, if we ask for a clarification on the question or if we say we'll talk about something offline, that's the reason why. And Tiffany can jump more into that too later.
Thank you for saying that. Yes, so thank you very much for saying that. Yes, so I'm a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer on this webinar today. So we can help find issues and we can help give some general guidance and point you in the right direction and empower you to solve your own problems. But please don't take any of this as legal advice. Thank you very much, Ben.
So Tiffany, can I take any of this as my legal advice for you because you're my lawyer?
No.
All right. So now that we got that clarification out of the way, we should be able to be great and off and running. As a precursor, before we dive into this, and this is really going to be sort of a fireside chat. It's not going to be just this big like PowerPoint presentation of stuff. We really wanted to have a conversation with you all today. And the basis of this conversation was this thought of, what if I was starting today, right? What if we had to start over? And many of us are thinking in certain ways from a business perspective of, man, what do we have to start over today? Or what do we need to do or think about today in this crazy COVID-19 environment that we have? You know what, and I've been trying, our team internally, we're so tired of talking and saying, you know, coronavirus and COVID-19, we're saying like in this digital only environment that we're in, just because it sounds a little different and to mix it up a little bit. But if you started over today, what are the things that are the do's and the don'ts in a digital only environment that we're in right now? And things look a little bit differently. You know, things are a little bit crazy, but I just want to start out the webinar by saying that we all will get through this. It's going to be a crazy time. It's going to be a stressful time. We can expect that coming down the pipeline. And a matter of fact, by every expert opinion, it's probably going to get a little worse before it gets a little better. So we're in this together. But I will give you some advice that you can take heart in, is that don't freak out. There's so many people out there that have your back as a business owner, as an employee, as a partner, as whatever that may be, as a leader in this time, I just encourage you to take heart in the fact that there's a lot of people out there that are here to support you, whether it's the JVC, whether it's TSG, whether it's every single other organization that's out there doing webinars. You know, none of us are in competition with all that stuff, whether it's JCK, whether it's AGS, whether it's JA, whether it's WJA. Everybody is out there putting their best stuff forward to help you navigate this time. And that's why we wanted to put this together. We really wanted to take an opportunity to guide you through this, to say, you know what, let's take a moment. Let's have that freak out moment. Hopefully most of you have already had your freak out and panic moments. And now you're like, hey, let's get back to business. Let's figure out what we can do to put ourselves in the right position to be successful moving forward, put ourselves in the right position to take care of our teams moving forward, put ourselves in the right positions to take care of our families and our businesses and all of our clients and customers in our communities moving forward. So I say that because I also want to make sure that we address that by no means by us jumping into this and giving you advice of where to go and the things that we think you should be doing, are we taking this situation lightly. We don't think it should just be business as usual. We don't think it should be, you know, just put the blinders on and forget everything that's going on right now. By no means is that what we're suggesting by trying to give you information and give you stuff to actually move forward. We know that things just can't stop. We know that everybody needs a moment to kind of soak it all in and understand. But when you are ready to grow and when you're ready to go forward, we want to be here to help you out. And so I know the JVC and I know Tiffany and her team are putting together a ton of stuff and resources. They've already launched resources for you. There's a whole page. And Tiffany, you can talk about that just real quick before we even get going of what you guys recently just launched before we even got into educational content.
Sure. So, Ben, that's such a great point because we want everybody on this call, we want you to be laser focused on your business, your family, your team, and rest assured there is a whole infrastructure built around you in the industry to support you. All these different industry associations, we're looking out for you from the legal perspective. We're not only interpreting all this stuff and pushing it out to you, we're also in DC doing things right now. We're working on several projects. We're signed on to some of the efforts around the relief bill that just is going to come through tomorrow morning, hopefully. And we're working on some freezing tariffs and all different kinds of things, as well as pushing all of this information out. So, and like Ben said, there's tons of other organizations. JSA is making sure that crime is going to stay down. You know, all different things are out there to support you. And likewise, you know, you're part of the ecosystem too. There's a lot of people who rely on you, your employees certainly, but think about, you know, we are such a wonderfully global industry. There's all kinds of people in the supply chain. There's someone halfway across the world right now who is very invested in your business staying healthy because it's going to help their family. So we are part of a really, really, really big community here. And there's a lot of people support coming your way. And there's a lot of people invested in your success going forward so they can survive too. So none of us, even though we might be in our homes alone right now, none of us are truly alone. So from our point of view, we're trying to stay really laser focused on how we can help with legal and business issues at this time. So we've launched a resource hub on our page, which is jvclegal.org. And there's a button at the top, but it's /COVID-19. We've also made all of our resources free to the entire community. We're a nonprofit membership-based organization, but we're making everything free for the foreseeable future just to help as many people as we possibly can. So we're constantly updating that site. We didn't want to be passive and just have like a link to random, you know, we don't have like the CDC's website on there. That's not what our resource page is about. We've created a lot of original content for your business and we're refreshing it every day. And then we've put substantive links below to areas like insurance, employment law, real estate, and other resources that we can get you access to that you wouldn't have access to otherwise through our partnerships to help your business from that super focused legal point of view.
And is this something that's dynamic that people are going to be able to keep refreshing, coming back to as things?
Yeah, we change it every day. Yeah, we have a team meeting. We have team meetings ongoing, and we're writing new content and bringing in new resources all the time. In fact, one of our lawyers from our team right now is listening to an employment webinar to figure out how this new stimulus package is going to affect employment and small business loans. And we'll be pushing that out to everybody to make sure it's bite-sized and you can understand it and take action on it.
Excellent. All right, so let's dive into it. The first thing that we wanted to talk about today is as we dive in, so if you started over today, what are the things that we need to be thinking about from a marketing perspective, from a branding perspective? And the first thing that comes to my mind is if I had to answer the question, if I started over today, the first thing that I would think of is brand, right? A lot of people are thinking about content. You know, we've put a lot of people into content. Claire, I just saw your message. We're on it. We're gonna get to the good stuff right now. From a content perspective, a lot of people are starting to say, okay, what kind of events can I have? What kind of things can I post? All of this type of stuff. How can I get my website up? But the biggest thing that people aren't focused on right now, and the things that we're trying to coach our clients through, is really focused on brand, right? There's no better time than right now, when you have potentially less distractions than ever. If you're a traditional retailer, if you are a studio, with whatever that may be, right? It's important to understand, what is my brand and where am I going? And what does that look like through a digital only environment right now? What does that look like through the lens of digital? So when I say brand, what do I mean? When I say brand, I'm talking about more than just your logo and your fonts and your colors. I'm really talking about your persona. So who are you? What do you represent? What do you look like, sound like, feel like to the consumer online, right? Right now is the chance that you need to have everything so streamlined, because it's a good chance, as you start marketing, as you start using more social, as you start using more educational pieces online, people are getting bunches of different pieces of your content at different times and in different states and in different environments. But it all has to map back to something that builds your brand equity. So the first thing that I'm thinking that most of you need to do right now is really focus back on brand. So your website, what is your messaging on your website? What is the feel that's going on? Now that means it does include the aesthetic, it includes the branding, the colors, the copy, the messaging, all of that right now. But really focus back on your brand, because the other piece that's going to happen is, as you start working in the marketing and you start looking in the messaging piece of it and distributing content, you're probably going to have to rely on multiple people in your organization to distribute messaging and content. You've seen it on our channels, you've seen it on the JVC channels. You have a lot of different people that are distributing the messaging for the brand. So there needs to be sort of this true north, this sort of like alignment for your brand of what is the voice, what is the messaging, what do we say versus what do we not say? Do we say, we're closed, or do we say we're paused? Are we temporarily closed, or is just our showroom shut down, but we're still open for business? Getting in this alignment with you, your team, not just your marketing team, but everyone on your team. Remember, most businesses that we serve are in small communities. So there's communities that are people that are talking through, all different representatives of your brand. And you want that messaging and that branding to be very cohesive. You want all the same stories to be aligned with. And so the first thing that we'll talk about from an aesthetic point of view, is obviously your website, like I said, but there's also some other things that come to mind when we're talking about the distribution of content and we're driving people online and we're creating this content right now. And so one of the questions I had for Tiffany is that, what are the things that a lot of businesses that you see that you're working with when it comes to branding, right? What are the things, especially in digital, the nuances, what are the things that they're not thinking about when it comes to branding, liabilities, things of that nature, IP protection?
Great. Yeah. So you definitely want to make sure that you have your IP protected, and that includes filing for a trademark for your brand, as well as filing for copyrights for if you're a jewelry designer, for the designs that you might have. We think that the taking a step back and thinking about the framework that we're talking to people about right now in all the business issues, and especially with social media and digital marketing, as that's where we're all going to be living for the foreseeable future, is thinking about what you need to do right now to survive versus 10 months from now, a year from now. Don't do anything that you're going to do now to survive, and you make it through this time, and it's wonderful that you did that, and then you've created a liability for yourself that's going to be waiting for you on the other side. So we want you to have that assumption that you're going to make it long term. So let's make good decisions now so you can ease right into that future and not have a liability that you've created for yourself. And that comes back to actions you might take now on social media and digital marketing, including IP. So you want to go ahead and register marks, register copyrights. The Copyright Office has been working remotely anyway. They don't have offices. All their people work from home. So, and the federal government's still open, so they're still functioning. So you can still register there. And then on the other side of that, if obviously don't steal from people, don't violate other people's IP. And if you see that going on, just because we're in a moment of crisis doesn't mean that there are no rules and it's the Wild West. So if you see that happening, and in a moment of chaos, we suspect that it might happen even more than usual, keep track of that. You can report that to us. Those are things that we can follow up on to make sure that your IP isn't getting stolen. So definitely well worth protecting the IP that you create.
And does that include, so the companies' names that are, Smithie's Jewelers and things of that nature, is that all stuff that they should already be protected anyway? Not even, current situation outstanding,
Yeah, right. It's
is
good
that
help.
stuff
I
that
mean, I think this moment of sort of the music stopping is good for all of us to have a bit of a reality check on, where should you be already? Like last month, were you already in a position where you weren't properly protected even without all of this happening? So this is a nice moment of truth to take care of some of the things that you should have been protecting yourself with in any case, including making sure your IP is registered and looking around and making sure that people aren't using your logo or your designs or whatever in an unauthorized way.
Right. And I want to talk a bit more here as we dive into marketing and content distribution, all of that. I'm sure I can even proactively ask the question as we get to it of how protectable is our social media posts? How protectable are things that I'm posting online, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm sure we'll get to that as well. The question IP, when we say IP, we're talking about shorthand for intellectual property. So trademarks, copyrights, things of that nature, patents, things that we can actually own, that is our intellectual and proprietary property. Great question. Thanks for asking that. So from a marketing perspective, when it comes to what we're talking about in terms of content, right now, from a content perspective, you should be thinking like more of a Netflix and an HBO or a Hulu than an individual TV show. When we're helping people with marketing right now, you need to really focus on the sort of human aspect of the brand. And when it comes to marketing and when it comes to your content distribution, one of the things, the biggest framework is like, we see most people thinking like a show, and they're creating episodes of a show versus thinking higher level of saying, wait, what types of shows do I want to create? Do I have something that's entertaining? Do I have something that's informative? Do I have something that's personal and human? Do I have something that's, technological and product focused? Do I have my at-home version or my in-store version of, to hate to use an older reference, but like an HSN or a QVC, like how are we doing product promotions? How are we showing these things? A lot of businesses right now are doing virtual trunk shows. We had a retailer right now that did a great virtual trunk show. They had the TV set up behind them. They were standing in front of it. They had jewelry laid out and on displays all on top of the case. They had someone with their webcam, well, essentially someone's iPhone on a stand, and went live on Facebook. They can have a separate phone going live on Instagram, and then recording it with a third device if you wanted to for a webinar that can be played later online. So when it comes to the marketing piece of it right now, the first thing I would tell you is to change your thinking, right? You need to really change your thinking and sit there and think of, how am I a network of content versus just a series of content? The way you do that then is sit down and plan it out. As an agency, a lot of people ask us what tools do we use and all of that. We use Monday.com as our sort of task management. We use Later.com for our content management, but you can be very, very simple in your approach for this and just use a free Google spreadsheet, right? And in that Google spreadsheet, you can create all of your content spread out. So here's the series that I want to post. Which week of the month do I want to post it? What day of the week do I want to post it? Is it something that I want to be regularly scheduled? Meaning Do you want to go live on Facebook on Wednesdays, or do you want to go live on Instagram on Tuesdays? What are the content series? Break up your content. So right now, if you are a designer, I would go through a whole series of design backgrounds and talk about inspiration for designs. Follow that up with how you created and brought those inspirations into life, and the aspects, and showcase a different piece of jewelry each day. If I'm a retailer, I'm thinking about so one of my channels is going to be all focused on the brands that I carry. One of my channels is going to be focused all about trends and styles of engagement rings. Another one of my channels is going to be all focused on loose diamonds and diamond education. And the other one's going to be focused all about our community and things that we see going on in our community. So having a digital presence in today's digital only environment is obviously one of those things that's no longer just a nice to have, it's a must have. So I would encourage you that if you don't have your website launched, if you're not looking into what it looks like for e-commerce, and you can focus on, I'd say, the 2 to 3 main platforms. So I would say Facebook and Instagram. And then I would also say looking at having a YouTube channel that's connected to your website, so you can then use that to email out links to videos, longer form content, etc. And I'll dive in a little bit there, but I wanted to ask, based on some of the stuff I was saying now, let's ask about the social piece of it. Are there things, we get a lot of questions from a content perspective of, should you be putting your logo on every single post? Should you be putting some sort of copyright on every single post? What are the legalities of that, or what are the pitfalls and things that people need to be worried about when it comes to social content distribution?
There's not a lot of precedent for copywriting posts. I don't think that you're going to build a lot of IP that way. Certainly you want to put your handle on things in a way that's not too obtrusive. So if people end up sharing, that you get credit for that and end up driving people back to your site. The thing that I was thinking about when you were speaking is, for people, like the topic today is starting from scratch, right? So if people are looking to extend their reach, I think people are, maybe they had a social audience, they felt pretty good about how many people they were reaching, but in this environment, it seems like, oh my gosh, we need to reach so many more people. From the legal side, I'd be very interested from the strategic side, how you advise people to do that. But from the legal side, I would just remind people, in the interest of keeping your liability small on the other side of this, that you do have to have people's consent to email them. There are a lot of rules around data privacy and the way that you use people's email address and other personal information. So don't buy lists in a shady way, or if people have signed up for one purpose, just keep emailing them. You have to give them an option out that's really obvious as well, and that you actually opt them out. So after all this, a lot of people are going to be looking for ways to make money. And one of those groups of people are going to be lawyers, who are going to be doing all kinds of lawsuits, way more than usual. And privacy is an area that is very well protected for consumers, and one of the first ones that people will go to sue en masse. So we want you to keep it airtight right now as you're expanding your reach. Just do it in the right way, so you can be nice and healthy after this is over.
And that's a good segue into how do I expand my reach, right? So you mentioned from a strategic standpoint, the interest in kind of what that looks like. And I would imagine that a lot of people on here are looking at, and we have a wide variety. I know even just from the names that I saw in the registration, there's people on here that are already doing stuff in an advanced way, and there's people in here that are looking to do it for the first time. The biggest thing that you can do right now, I would say let's tackle it in sort of 2 parts. 1, organically, and then 2, from a paid perspective, right? From an organic perspective, I would be thinking in 3 different segments of content. 1 would be anchor content, 2 would be supporting content, and 3 would be micro content, right? So anchor, supporting, and micro content. And what do I mean by that? Anchor content is sort of your long form content. I mentioned that could be a trunk show virtually. That could be a webinar like we're doing right now. That could be a blog post or a video blog, right? A blog post that you do. That could be, like I said, something written. Whatever that may be, that long form content becomes your anchor content. That is your core episode, right? And the reason why I gave the Hulu, Netflix, HBO Now example is because they're brilliant in keeping people's attention and brilliant in pulling people through series of marketing content. So you have your episode, right? You have your anchor piece of content. Supporting content would then be a trailer, right? Supporting content would be the movie trailer or the show trailer. Micro content would be the ad or the little sizzle 15-second sizzle reel that gets shown as a teaser in between other shows, et cetera, et cetera. Take that same approach right now with your marketing content, and it is going to save you hours of time. For example, when we do this webinar, this is going to be the anchor content. It goes online, the recording will get posted online, but then we'll take snippets of that as I'm talking through maybe this example of anchor, supporting, and micro content. We'll take this example and cut that into a 2-minute clip that then becomes a supporting piece of content. Then from there, we'll take 30-second clips and we'll use those on Instagram stories, and we'll use those on paid ads, and that'll become our micro content. You can do the same thing, and let me use this very specific example. Say we want to do the 4 C's of diamonds, right? You want to use this time to educate your community and educate your customers on what is the, like, everybody's heard of the 4 C's most likely, but what do they really mean? So what I would do is I would sit there and I would do a 20-minute video on the 4 C's of diamonds. And I would talk through your personal way of explaining it. Maybe in your story, you focus more on cut. And your whole deal is you buy based on cut because you believe that's going to give the most brilliance to the consumer. And so you can talk about how that one of the 4 C's is sort of the Smithee jewelers way of doing things. Other jewelers are saying, hey, we really want, clarity or color, or some people are like, we want to go for size, right? So you can talk through all 4 of those 4 C's in a long form video where you can get it all done. That lives on YouTube, that lives on your website, on a blog, that lives on Instagram TV, whatever long form content you have. Then you back that up with the next segment, which is supporting content. You can take that same video and splice it up into 4 different pieces. You can splice it up into 4 different pieces of posts that go on your feed. So Instagram feed, Facebook news feed, whatever that may be. Those could be separate, smaller blog posts, separate, smaller videos, and you cut those out. Those feed posts are always used and then linked back to your anchor content. So all of your content from your supporting feed posts go back to your anchor content and say, hey, here's like feeding people back to your website. And that's important in a second here when we switch over to the paid piece. From your organic side then, right now we know Instagram stories are performing better than anything out there right now, even in the feed posts, that micro content, right? So the micro content now lives in stories. That's where we take each one of those 4 C's and we cut it up into something which like a GIF or a meme, something funny, or you do something that gets the user's attention right away in 15 seconds or less, right there in the Instagram story area. Those Instagram stories lead back to your feed posts, which is your supporting content. That supporting content leads back to the anchor content. Every single person on this webinar has probably heard of what's called funnel, right? Everybody talks about the marketing funnel, or people say click funnels, or any of these other things. That right there is exactly what we're talking about from a marketing perspective when it comes to funneling. Meaning my Instagram story content leads to my posts, leads to the link in my bio, leads to my website, leads to this longer form video. If you only focused on doing that and putting content in there, you would have 90% of the marketing game today down to a science. And if you just perfected your funnels in that direction, you would be able to sell plenty of jewelry online. You would be able to do all of this stuff, and you would be able to focus then on what is my next piece of content. Does that bring up any questions or any things on your side, Tiffany, just as I started going off on that before I jump into the paid side?
That's so incredibly helpful. I mean, we're in the same boat as everyone else. We, with your help, have been upping our digital game for a while, but this just calls for a major upgrade, I think, no matter what level you're at, and that structure really helps. I think maybe you're going to talk about the paid piece in a second, but I think that's where we're struggling. We create a lot of really dense legally content, and we have an audience, but it's not huge. So we're thinking, okay, we don't need to work harder on just creating more content. We just need to make sure more people are hearing about this, and how do we find those ears and eyes that are hungry for our information?
Excellent. We just had a question come in. It's really good. I want to address it right now, actually, because it pertains exactly to what I just spoke about, which is, as a supplier, we're wanting to create content that our jewelers can use within their own brands. Which form of content should we focus on providing? If it were me, and now I went from Smithee's Jewelers to Smithee's Diamond supply, then in that case, I would be producing all three forms of those content and making it super turnkey for retailers to use. So if most retailers, I would say that let's be generous and say 75% of retailers out there on their website use the basic AGS or GIA 4Cs content on their website. Plug and play almost verbatim. Now I think they open source it, so it is legal for them to use it, but I think that it is pretty much verbatim the same content that most retailers see out there. And Tiffany, I'm sure you probably see the same thing. But I think if I was trying to be the voice of diamonds and help my retailers, I would make sure that I have content that they can use on their website that talk about the 4Cs in a more consumer friendly, approachable way. I would make sure that they have social posts, and I would make sure that they have Instagram story, vertical posts that they can use. What we help our suppliers with is all of the above. So when we're working with a brand, which we like a brand or a supplier, one of the things that we help them have is a monthly retailer guide that goes out to all of their retailers. So when a retailer signs up for a program, we want to give them the best information about the brand. We want to give them a link to where they can download all of our branded content and keep that updated. And then each month show them, here's the social posts that we're posting from our own, what we call master brand, right? So Alex, that would be your brand's account. Here's the stuff that we're posting. Here's the links to it so they don't have to take really horribly crappy screenshots of it and then post it. Here's the link to the actual assets you can use. And then here's some vertical frames that we've used that you can use right in stories as well. So if I'm a brand that started over today and I'm focused on not print mailers and all these other things, but I'm focused on providing digital content to my retailers and my retail clients, I'm producing all of it. I'm saying, here's great blog posts on diamond education that you can use. Here's education that you can use as the messaging on your website. Here's social content that we're using each month. Here's an email template that you can go out and then you can plug into your branded email. And then here are Instagram story posts that we can have. Today, every business, regardless of you're a retailer, a supplier, a manufacturer, a designer, a studio, a legal counsel, an agency, everybody on this webinar should be thinking like a media company. And by thinking like a media company, thinking like Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, you name it. Because right now, that's what you are. You are a media company that happens to use media to sell X, Y, or Z. Alex, I hope that answered your question. It was not the easy answer of just pick one or two, but it's the necessary answer of like do all of the above. Someone said, we can't see you, only Tiffany. Is that correct? Oh, it depends on how you have your settings. In your video settings, you can say gallery versus speaker setting. And if you hit gallery, you should be able to see everybody on video. You should see both Tiffany and myself. Okay, the paid side. This is the $1 million question that people ask. And this is generally the reason why most people say, we're doing social, but we don't see it working. So if you only get one thing from this entire webinar, from my portion, from the marketing piece, this is it right here. This is where you need to focus on for your marketing and your paid. Paid right now, especially in this situation that we're in right now, has never been as important and as cost effective as it is right now. It'll rarely ever be as cost effective as it is right now. As so many people freak out and put things on pause and all of this other stuff, and rightfully so, we're seeing cost for social ads go exponentially down and not lose effectiveness. Anything be even more effective. So as a business right now, even if your doors are shut as a retailer, even if everything is on hold, you 100% absolute certainty should be posting content and should be spending on ads. The reason why I say that, because in the digital game today, if you're not spending on ads, you're not really giving the power of your organic content that you're creating like its full extent. So that'd be like having say you're investing in creating amazing, epic, original content, organic content that goes on your feed, on your blog, and on your Instagram stories and on IGTV. If you're not using paid to support that, you've basically built a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, but you're not putting any gas in it. And you're pushing it as you try to drive it with your feet. It's so important to understand that the social game today is fed by paid media. It's the business they built. They said, hey, build your audience here, and now you got to pay to support it. That's just the cost of playing the game. You have to support it with paid media today. Internally as an agency, we rarely even use the word advertising. We call it paid distribution because that's what it is. If you're not paying, you're really only at best reaching your 3 to 5% of your audience organically. So you have to be putting paid money behind it, especially right now, to break through and position it well. Right now, there's one thing that people have across all industries, across all consumers, have increased exponentially in, and that's time right here. Time spent right here on their phones, on their media, on social media, consuming content. Be the person that, first of all, has content here, and be the person that actually reaches the people with their content, and that takes through paid. You should be running two types of things, and we'll do another webinar later, probably next week or the week after, that's focusing 100% just on paid advertising. So take a look out for that. But paid advertising right now, you should be running some sort of brand awareness campaign that is focusing on your brand and the community and what you represent. You should be running something that's about your most important business model. So for most of you, that's probably bridal or engagement, or it could be, loose diamonds or fashion, but 50%, or I would say 90% of you, 50% of your business is based on bridal or engagement. So I would have absolutely right now an ad campaign that's running through social about why you're the best in engagement rings. And the content, though, is not why we're the best in engagement rings. It's educational content on the 4 C's. It's education content on the different styles and trends of engagement rings. It's educational content on the best places in your city to get engaged. All of these different human pieces of the brand are so crucial when it comes to that. And then the next thing, I want to give Tiffany some time to speak here, but the other thing is we'll talk about in partnerships, what brand partnerships look like, because that's one of the things I'm sure that you and I both, if there's one thing in terms of legality, if it's outside of lab grown diamonds right now, the next hot topic has to be what? I'll let you take the words out of our mouth, Tiffany.
If you're going to work with influencers or partners, there are a lot of things to keep in mind and make sure that you make the most of it and that you don't end up creating liability or problems for yourself down the line. We have on our website, which is jvclegal.org, we have a pull down on Learn called How to Advertise Jewelry. And we have a couple of different things there. And one of them is a guide to working with influencers. We also did a series on our own Instagram page, which is JVC Legal. At JV's Legal, about that breaks down the most key components of working with influencers and the way that you want to make sure that they're disclosing, because they could create, if they do things wrong or get sloppy, they can create liability for you. It's also important to make sure that you have a written agreement with them that outlines everything, and that you make sure that they've promised to do what is legal and what they need to be doing.
So let me get that right. So you're saying written, so we call it a user like a content agreement. That's now, is that just the agreement between myself and the influencer, or what are those things
start
that you
there. We always
there?
we always encourage people to, right now you might be kind of like, you just want to keep things moving, but take the time to write down agreements, take the time to write things down and agree to them. And then once you get going, you're going to want to review what they're doing from time to time to make sure that they're following the rules, because they're acting sort of on your behalf and representing your brand. And I'm sure Ben has a lot of thoughts about how you want them to represent you in aesthetically and so forth, but they are also potentially creating liability for you if they are saying things the wrong way. And you also obviously want to check out all their social media activity right now, because everybody's stuck inside creating crazy content if they're kind of, if they're already fragile. So you might not want to team up with somebody who's going to be on TikTok being, with a different sort of brand identity than you want to identify with.
Yeah, and just as a poll here in the chat, I'm going to give you two options. So type number 1 if you have ever run any type of influencer or partnership campaign, and type number 2 if it's something that you've heard about and you're interested in, but you haven't yet done so. So 1, if you've already done some sort of influencer marketing, or 2, if you're interested in it, but you haven't done it so yet.
A lot of twos.
A lot of twos.
Great. That's great.
All right, so based on that, I'm going to give you the basic parameters again, and then I'll kick it back to Tiffany again. She can talk about some of the legal parameters that she would suggest that all businesses would do. But here's how you do influencer marketing well, and here's the pitfalls of where a lot of people don't see the ROI. It'd be interesting here to see this too. Of the ones that said 1 in the chat, type a 3 if you've done influencer marketing, but you feel like you didn't get something right, or you didn't get the results that you thought you wanted to get from it. So for all the ones that have done it, write 3 if you've done it and you didn't get what you thought you should from it. That's what I was thinking. So from the ones that came through, you see the 3s in there. The reason that is it touches on the thing that I touched about before in terms of paid, but here's what you have to do. So I'm going to start in the beginning for those of you that were the 2s that are wanting to do it, but you haven't really done it yet. And I'll give you the advice so those of you that have 3s can turn those into success in the future. The first thing is identifying your influencers, right? How do you identify your influencers? And it's super simple. I won't do it live. Sometimes I've done presentations live on my phone before, and you just don't know what's going to pop up when you do a search on Instagram. So I'm not going to do it live. But quite literally, if you go in, if you're a retailer, type in your zip code into Instagram, into the Instagram search, and you'll start seeing top posts and recent posts that are from your location in Instagram. So in there, you can start seeing who's posting great content in your area, in your location, right? You can see how many followers they have. You can see how much engagement they have. The sweet spot for most of you, if you are a local retailer, right? The sweet spot for most of you is going to be those that have 10 to 50,000 followers. You don't have to go after the people that have 100, 200,000, a million followers. Start with the sweet spot of, and if it were me personally, and I was starting today, influencer marketing would be one of the very first things that I invest in as a retailer. And what I would do is, rather than have, if you asked me right now, if I would rather have one influencer that had 100,000 followers or 10 influencers that have 10,000 followers, I'd take the 10 that have 10 100% of the time. So first step is find the right influencer that's producing the right type of content. It doesn't have to be jewelry content. And matter of fact, I would suggest find an influencer that's not posting about jewelry content already. Find someone that's doing fashion. Fashion is great because they generally have a good eye for fashion and aesthetic and all of those things. And find someone that's doing that. They already have someone that they have a relationship with for shooting photography or whatever that may be. So identify the right influencers at the right size. Remember, I tell our jewelry industry this all the time. We're in the business where 1s and 2s matter, right? You don't need to shoot for tens and thousands. If you sold 2 to 3 more engagement rings every month, it would change a lot of your businesses. So remember, 1s and 2s matter. So we want to get 10 influencers or 5 influencers or 2 or 3 influencers that each have 10 to 50,000 followers. The next thing you do is you make sure that you're following them and you start getting a look at their content. Maybe engage with them on Instagram a little bit, like some of their posts, comment on their posts, right? Things of that nature to start building that warm rapport back and forth before you make the ask. The next thing that you need to have is exactly what Tiffany said, which is a user content agreement or a user agreement. In that agreement, I'm not a lawyer, so we have lawyers do that. In that usage agreement, you want to make sure that you have rights to the content that they post, right? You want to have the requirements of what it's going to do. So when they post the content, you have rights to that content. They are required to post certain content. They are required to disclose the partnership in that content in a certain way that the FTC guidelines, you can find it on the JVC website, what those guidelines are and what you need to do. They are required to disclose it in the right way. They're required to give you some sort of reporting metrics. For us, when we work with influencers, and this makes the big difference here, is we require some partnership access to their account. And this is the big difference. Most people, when they run an influencer account, have that influencer post 2 or 3 different feed posts in their Instagram feed. The posts, they have them post 2 or 3 different Instagram stories, and then that's it. And they expect it to sort of magically work from there. What you need to be doing is take that to the next level to see it really win. And what do I mean by that? You need to make sure that you're putting paid money behind that. So when we run an influencer campaign, there's a couple pieces of it. One is we have them post organically. 2, we post that content organically, right? 3, we then put paid money behind that. We as an agency partner with them, and we get partner access to their ad account that's associated to their Instagram or Facebook page, and we run paid ads through their account to their audience. Remember, organically, they're only getting 3 to 5% organic reach anyways to their community. So to get the full extent of them being an influencer, you need to really put paid money to where all of their community is seeing that content. Then you're putting paid money behind the ads of the content that you're running through your master brand account. So if I'm Smithee's Jewelers, I'm paying $500 through Tiffany Stevens' fashion influencer account to the content she's created for me. I'm running Tiffany Stevens content on the Smithee Jewelers account, and I'm putting paid money behind the Smithee Jewelers account on her content. That right there should all lead back to, if this is all supporting content, this should all lead back to anchor content on the website. So on your website, you should have a landing page, smitheejewelers.com/Tiffany Stevens. And that website landing page has the content that Tiffany posted. It has maybe a video from her that's talking about why she loves X, Y, and Z styles. And then a place where they can either shop online or they can set up an appointment to try those styles on in your store. If you do that, you will see a dramatically higher range of success than what most people have done before. So out of all the 3s that were there, type in a 4 if that's how you ran your campaign to the T. All right, we're not seeing any yet. So I would venture to say that most people are not running an influencer campaign to that extent. That's what you need to do right there in terms of getting your content exposed to the right people, having the influencer campaign work that well. Those are the things that you really, really want to start seeing with your influencer campaigns. Now, again, just as a check-in on that, Tiffany, FTC guidelines, user content, what other things are really important? And then I want to make sure that we hit some more of these questions.
Okay, great. Yeah, there are really specific ways that you can describe and advertise jewelry. There's a whole set of FTC guidelines just for our industry about exactly how you can talk about a diamond, exactly how you can describe a pearl, exactly how you have to talk about disclosed caratage on gold, etc. You can come to the JVC to help understand that. You can look at our webpage, you can contact us. I'm Tiffany at jvclegal.org or info@jvclegal.org to ask any questions. But you want to make sure that you understand those things and that you are making sure that your influencer does, and that you're checking and making sure that they are not describing things in the wrong way. And the most important thing about these disclosures or these descriptions is that you put them right up front, particularly if you're working with a paid partner, that those disclosures are made right up front. Someone shouldn't have to click more on Instagram to understand that they're looking at a paid ad by an influencer. So you just want to make sure that you're really on top of that, because the FTC is quite serious about this. And like maybe 3 weeks ago, was it? They asked for public comments. They're going to heighten and strengthen the requirements even more. And usually when they do that, they also uptick enforcement. So you want to make sure that you don't create any problems for yourself by not describing jewelry the right way. I'm sure you guys all are up to speed on that. If you're not, refresh yourself and make sure that your influencer does too. And I know we're running out of time. Maybe we'll talk about this on one of our others. We're doing a series. We think that at the end of all this, the people who make it through are going to have a very strong point of view on what they have to say about how they responsibly and ethically source their jewelry, whatever that means to them. Yeah. And that also has a whole set of nuanced ways that you can talk about and describe in your online digital presence. So maybe we'll get to that at another point.
Yeah, for sure. I think the next question, and then I want to rapid fire and get through these Q&A, but the next question is, how do we do all of this? This sounds like a lot of work. Well, right now, it is a lot of work.
Bad news.
It takes a lot of time, but it's what it takes to be successful, right? In order to see the ROI drop down to the bottom that you want to see, this is the stuff that you have to do it. Now, this is something to where also, if I started over today, one of my sales team that's the best suited for it would transfer into being a digital content person in my store. Maybe I'd put them half-time on the sales floor and compensate them half-time for doing this type of content, creating content, capturing content, interviewing the other sales team. That type of stuff is important. To me, that person is a salesperson. They're a digital salesperson for me in my store. That's what I would do today. And right now, while people are remote, or if you're keeping your employees on, which I applaud you if you can do that, that's awesome. Please keep doing that. Repurpose them to starting to create great social content. Build up a whole library. You could come out of these next few weeks with a whole library of amazing social content that works in all of these ways. Questions. How do you recommend business in a smaller community with little to no influencers to go about partnerships? Do we not use that form of marketing, or do we move into a different community? Partner with businesses instead of people. If you don't have someone that's an influencer in your community, partner with businesses. Partner with local businesses in your community. There's a favorite restaurant, there's a favorite bar, there's a favorite dry cleaners, there's a favorite clothing shop, a favorite movie theater. Partner with them. So now, if I'm a local movie theater, now maybe you're standing in there and you're doing diamond education and you call it Diamond Theater, and you're partnering with your local movie theater. If it's uh, a local candy shop, you have an old school candy shop, you're doing sweets and treats, and you're talking about the sweetest things that are new in your jewelry store in a candy shop. If it's a clothing store, you're talking about fashion and jewelry, and you're mixing and matching partnership looks with jewelry and fashion and all this stuff. There's a million ways you can do brand partnerships and influence partnerships without people if you're just using brands. Second, please clarify, where do you type in the zip code on Instagram to find the local influencers? When you pull up Instagram and you go to search or the explore section, at the very top, there's a search bar. Just like if you were searching for a specific user, type in the zip code in that search bar. We get a lot of content from different suppliers that are more of a background on the supplier. We don't advertise where we get our diamonds from, meaning it's a Smithie's Jewelers diamond, not a XYZ manufacturer diamond. Great. If I'm a manufacturer or supplier, I have to get over having my brand associated to it. And I have to think that if I'm Smithie's Diamonds and I'm supplying retailers, that me producing the best content that retailers can use, they're going to come to me to buy their diamonds from me if they get access to that. I'm using it as an asset and as a value add to my retailers to where it's not branded, or maybe I brand that content for them, right? Maybe I have a designer on staff, then I can brand it to Tiffany Stevens Jewelers, to Ben Smithie's Jewelers, to Caroline Tragus's Jewelers, whatever it may be. I'm rebranding my content for them to use. That's something that we have to rely on the supply and the manufacturer side to sort of do. Kara says, do you mean 10 to 50,000 followers or 10,000 to 50,000 followers? 10,000 to 50,000 followers. When I dealt with local jewelers to help them get their brand, they generally don't know what that means. They struggle with how to position themselves in enduring differentiation.
Like, just what is a branding exercise, or what does that mean to know what your brand is?
Exactly. So that's John Marchese. First of all, who's brilliant at brand. That is a loaded question because he's like the branding expert. When it comes to their brand, think of your brand, and they call it a brand persona for a reason. Think of two people. One is your brand itself. Is it male? Is it female? Is it 20s and 30s? Is it 50s and 60s? Is it fun? Is it serious? Is it a mix between the two? Is it professional or is it personal? Where's the slider in between? And if you have 0 to 10, or you have just a slider on each of those metrics, if you have your brand, give it a name, right? And not your store name, but give it a name. Is it Sally? Is it Steve? Is it Cade? Does it have a cool name? Like, whatever it may be, does it have a name? Give it a picture. Who is it? That's your brand avatar. The way you define your brand is from those personas that go along with it, and a slider from back and forth on the two of, is it this or that? And where's the mix in between all of those? Then you do that same thing for each of your core customers, right? Each of your core customers. So your female engagement ring customer, your male engagement ring customer, your female fashion self-purchaser, your male gift buying purchaser, right? All of those personas you define out there. Now, when you're creating your brand messaging, you refer back to those brand personas, because that's who you're speaking from and that's who you're speaking to. That's how you define a brand in the easiest way possible. Yes, we are going to send this presentation off by email. We're happy to answer any other questions that you may have. We are going to continue producing this type of content and putting out series of content. And we do, so at TSG, we're not only focused on creating great content, but we want to make sure that we do so in a way that keeps you legal, it keeps you on the forefront and ethical, and it keeps you on the forefront of where you need to be as a business today in the digital world, because it's changing so fast. So I would encourage you, there's a reason why we're partnering up with JVC on this. We're encouraging you to make sure that you do the things that are innovative, but also the things that have integrity. So there's a blend between innovation and integrity. And I think that you can do both very, very well today. Caroline, if you want to put up contact information, you can reach either one of us online. There's a number of ways that you can find us, whether it's email, whether it's social media. Feel free to reach out. Both of us here represent service-based organizations. We're here for you. Right now, we know there's more questions about social from our side than ever before. Reach out to us, right? Reach out to us. If anybody, if those of you that know us know, we've never turned down a question and never said, hey, we can't give you an answer for that. We'll find an answer for you. So I'd encourage you to reach out, email us. You can text or call that number on the screen for the Smithee Group. Follow us online. We're practicing what we preach. We're putting out content all the time for you guys. We're going to do it a lot more. Tiffany, I'll leave you with any parting thoughts from your side as well on where they can get more information.
Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for joining. We are with you and we will get through this together. And we are hoping for the best for all of our shared future to get through this thriving. You see my contact info here. That is my landline, so please don't, you can call it, but I won't be there. But please do contact us through one of these other ways. Our whole team is available to help you out.
Excellent. And they offer a variety of services. I encourage you, go to their page that they just set up on jvclegal.org about coronavirus and all the stuff to respond to. It's tons of valuable information that would cost you money to put it together otherwise. So thank you all so much for taking the time to join in. We'll be doing this regularly. I encourage you all to check back and we will keep you updated. And yes, to TJ, keep posting about stuff, or whoever just asked about posting about jewelry online. Keep posting about jewelry online. It'll be okay. Let's do something that gets people inspired and have an awesome day. We'll see y'all soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.